You didn't see that coming?
Welcome back, everyone. Sony reported recently that it's no longer making any more of the Spider-Man spin-off movies and live-action villains in their connected Venom universe, effectively killing what has been the Sony Marvel universe. RIP, press F to pay respects. We all saw this coming a long time ago, but Sony is still going to make Spider-Man related movies. They're still doing Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse right now. They still have that Spider-Man Noir live-action TV show with Nicolas Cage, but none of those were made as part of the connected Venom universe of movies. On top of this, Sony also announced their plans to reboot those with new creative down the road and new characters, like they're trying again, so we'll break that all down. The report they posted has some truly baffling reveals in it about what was going on behind the scenes at Sony when they were making all these villain spin-off movies. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There is that MCU Spider-Man TV show in January. I'll be doing episode videos for that. There's the Spider-Man Noir TV show. I'll be doing episode videos for that too, Beyond the Spider-Verse in a couple years. I think we're all expecting that to be a banger. Like, it is possible for Sony to actually make good Spider-Man related things. It is possible. The real question is what happened with these Venom universe movies and why did it all go so bad over there if they were doing such great things with like the Spider-Verse movies, for example. These are the 6 movies, though, that are considered to be part of what we call the Sony Marvel Universe as it exists today. The Spider-Verse movies, for example, they were made by a totally different group of people inside Sony, like Lord and Miller, who are the lead producers making those, have no connection to the Venom movies or like anything else that they were doing with the live-action movies. So that's why we don't include those when we're talking about the Sony Marvel Universe. Notice the different Rotten Tomatoes scores. It paints a real picture. Like even the Venom movies, which actually did earn some decent money for Sony, did very poorly from a critical perspective. And generally, it seemed like it was diminishing returns over time, like they started strong and then just got worse and worse and worse slowly over time. The report claims that Sony takes their string of failures seriously and does intend to reboot with fresh creative, but they didn't say if they're firing a ton of people who were responsible for greenlighting these inside Sony or rushing them through production without giving them the time to fix the issues that they had. Really good example of this over in the Marvel universe is Captain America 4 Brave New World. It also had a ton of issues. They did 4 reshoots, making it super expensive for Marvel. It'll wind up being almost as expensive or more expensive than like Avengers Infinity War, by example. It sounds like in a lot of cases, Sony saw that there were stinkers that they were about to release and didn't care enough about them to actually send them back to reshoots and spend the extra money they needed to make them better. They're like, no, just release it the way it is, who cares? How dare you suggest that this is a complicated tax scheme and we're just making these to hold on to the Spider-Man rights? One of the funnier claims during the report is that Sony insists that Morbius actually made money for them. But currently, as I said, they're not developing any more movies inside this connected universe, like no more villain spin-off movies at all. Right now, they're only doing the main Tom Holland Spider-Man 4 with Marvel in the MCU, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, and that live-action Spider-Man Noir TV show, which Lord and Miller, the Spider-Verse people, were responsible for until they left the project. Right as the Kraven movie was hitting theaters and they started to release all the box office reports about how much money it was going to lose, Sony released this damage control article made to make themselves look a little better. Like, no, we knew this was going to happen. Like, we planned for this. We're going to be rebooting things down the road. We understand what we did wrong now. How dare you suggest that Madam Web didn't make any money for us? Currently, the Kraven movie is on track to do about $11 million opening weekend. For comparison, Deadpool and Wolverine, that also just came out, opening box office for that same period was $211 million. An extra $200 million on top of that number. The article they released does offer some explanations for what actually went wrong behind the scenes and like some truly baffling creative decisions and conclusions that they came to in error. First off, a lot of people point to the lack of an actual Spider-Man showing up in any of these movies, causing people to care less about them in general, hurting ticket sales. I would say the Venom movies are evidence this isn't totally true. Like the Venom character in general was hitting the peak of its popularity in pop culture in the comics around the time that first Venom movie came out in theaters. Mostly thanks to Donny Cates' run and everything that he did through the King in Black storyline over the course of a couple years. Sony really got lucky with that. Like, they didn't know that he was going to be doing that with Venom when they made that first Venom movie. Like, they already planned to make a Venom spin-off movie. Then Donny Cates separately did his whole Venom run, making the character super popular, which really did help the Venom spin-off movie. But reportedly, in Sony's own words, studio insiders claim that they learned the wrong lessons from the success of that first Venom movie. So according to them, after that financial success, Sony thought that meant that people wouldn't accept Spider-Man in their villain spin-off movies, and they only wanted to see these just regular spin-off C, D-list, maybe F-list characters in some cases, without Spider-Man at all. In their legal sharing deal with Marvel for the Tom Holland Spider-Man character in those movies did not preclude them from using Spider-Man in any of their movies, so they could have put Tom Holland in any of these movies at any point that they wanted to, but they thought that audiences would hate that and that it would hurt ticket sales, not help them. Which is the most baffling possible conclusion you could take from any of this. Each time any of those trailers ever came out for those movies, people were just looking for the Spider-Man Easter eggs, like, is Spider-Man in this one? Like, what's going on? Is this going to be building up to some big Spider-Man team-up or crossover movie? When is Venom going to fight Spider-Man? Then we saw the Venom Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene teasing crossover with Spider-Man. We're like, oh, he's finally going to fight Spider-Man. This is going to be awesome. Cut to Spider-Man No Way Home, and then they have that post-credit scene. They retconned it during Venom The Last Dance, making you wonder what happened behind the scenes. Like, was there some argument with Kevin Feige? Like, why didn't he actually cross over with Spider-Man on screen? The big Sony report, it makes it sound like Sony thought that people did not want to see that, which is just absolutely crazy. But because that first Venom movie did so well, Sony incorrectly assumed that people would just love any spin-off movie for any C, D-list character that they would make a movie about. Like, oh, they'll come see any movie that we make. And because of the rights they own to the Spider-Man character movies, they have access to over 900 different characters. Some of the spin-offs that they were developing that we heard about were baffling, like the Hypno Hustler. Like, why would Donald Glover come back as the Hypno Hustler when he's already a version of the Prowler? Like, just bring the Prowler back. We saw that scene during Across the Spider-Verse. Why don't you just do stuff with that? Donald Glover even joked about that. That whole live-action Prowler stuff was all Lord and Miller, not the Sony people that were working on the live-action movies. Reportedly, they didn't even want that. Like, Lord Miller had to fight to get that to happen. And that live-action Venom universe crossover during Across the Spider-Verse, the people making the Venom movies did not want to do that. In the article now it says studio insiders are claiming they should just hire another Spider-Man actor to be in future live-action spin-off movies when they start making this reboot of the universe. And I'm still gonna say it, like we've all been saying the same thing, they should have just always used Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man or Tobey Maguire or even live-action Miles Morales. They already have a couple available Spider-Men to put in those movies. Personally, I always assumed that they'd asked Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire to be in all these different movies, and they just turned them down. But the way these articles about the behind the scenes of it all make it sound like Sony never even bothered to ask them, like they didn't even try. Now it sounds like going forward, they'll ask them to come back more frequently, or they'll just hire another new Spider-Man to play another variant inside that universe. The reason why they haven't just used live-action Miles Morales yet is because Amy Pascal, producer on a lot of the bigger Spider-Man movies and the Spider-Verse movies, said that they're basically waiting till after they're done with his story in Beyond the Spider-Verse, then the character is already getting a live-action movie that they're developing, so they're already planning on making that, but it won't be released till at least 2028 at the rate they're going. Originally, what Sony had planned to do way back was to try and do trilogies for all these different Spider-Man spin-off movies, the way that Venom made it to a trilogy. Morbius trilogy, Madam Web trilogy, Kraven trilogy, and so on. There were so many other canceled movies like the Black Cat, the Silver Sable movies that you remember hearing about. Same deal for them too. So it sounds like after the first Venom movie blew up, Sony just took the shotgun approach, like we'll just try movies for like every single character that we can think of. And instead of slowing things down when they started to have problems, they sped up and started to increase their output, like we'll fix it by releasing more and doing it faster, which sounds familiar because it's how Marvel got into trouble in the MCU the last couple of years, by just releasing stuff way too fast without doing enough quality control on it. Now it sounds like Sony has had their come to Jesus moment and they're starting to realize, oh, we should probably do that same thing too. Separately, you probably also remember Sony was planning on creating a Sinister Six crossover movie, which would have had its own trilogy. That's what that whole Morbius post-credit scene was meant to set up. Then around the time they were making Venom The Last Dance, I think Sony saw the writing on the wall, decided to pivot to the Knull God of Symbiotes storyline for their big crossover event movies. They wanted their own version of Avengers Endgame, they wanted their own Thanos. That's basically who Knull is meant to be. Those would have led up to a larger crossover with the Spider-Man characters, and hopefully, I think that they wanted to use more MCU characters and crossover too. Like, Sony really wants to connect their Venom universe to the MCU. All because the King in Black storyline in the comics was a line-wide crossover with the Avengers, the X-Men, everyone fighting him, even the Sentry character. And it sounds like from the report, Sony was planning to do this soft reboot on their whole universe and just going forward, focus more on the Venom mythology and bring everything else together through that storyline in live-action Miles Morales. And that's basically what the Venom The Last Dance post-credit scene was meant to set up, to give Tom Hardy an out if he didn't want to come back so they could move forward with another version of Venom, or if they wanted to bring him back, they could still explain how they do that too. So it kind of sounds like they expected Kraven to bomb at the box office before it came out, and they knew they were going to reboot the universe long before all this. Like, the reboot plan isn't something they just thought of now, and they're just telling everybody about. Like, they thought about this a long time ago. They probably knew they were going to do it before Madam Web came out, because reportedly they also removed several pages from the Madam Web script days before they were about to film it, and it was from the second and third acts, which is one of, I mean, there are many reasons, but it's one of the big reasons why Madam Web is such a mess of a movie. So it sounded like when Sony decided to pivot, they basically gave themselves a whole bunch of self-inflicted wounds, like the L is self-inflicted. Probably because they knew their whole grand design for the movies was going to be changing, and they were going to be pivoting to Venom, Knull storylines, the whole live-action Miles Morales of it all. They didn't say if any of the actors are going to be returning after the reboot or any of it's going to be canon. My assumption is they'll try to get Tom Hardy to come back to do more Venom, and they'll try to continue with the Knull storyline. But in general, they're just going to try fresh slate with pretty much all of it. They will definitely continue to make Venom movies because they're the only real movies that actually made a ton of money in live action for them outside of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies and the Spider-Verse movies. And instead of doing a ton of villain spin-off movies with C and D F-list characters, they'll mostly focus on live-action Miles Morales and just redo all of these villain characters as version based on his comics on his Earth. You remember a big thing at Disney right now is doing the live-action remakes? Imagine Sony kind of doing the same type of thing with the Spider-Verse movies, just do Miles Morales Ultimate Universe in live action. They're not going to do a direct copy-paste live-action remake like Disney is doing with all the musical movies. It won't be exactly like that, but they'll probably try to recapture a lot of that energy in live action. Some of the stuff they do in the Spider-Verse movies is just like so wild, there's no way they could pull it off in live action. So like you can't do one-to-one with the Spider-Verse movies. But personally, I think outside of getting Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire to come back and then making Amazing Spider-Man 3 or Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 4, that live-action Miles Morales plan is probably the best shot that Sony has to actually start fresh with brand new creative, like fresh slate, and get audiences to come back on board. Like, oh, you love all the Spider-Verse movies, well now we're going to be doing this in live action. So that it genuinely feels like a totally fresh thing that has nothing to do with all the Sony Marvel Universe stuff that came before. And it doesn't completely rely on them needing Tom Holland in every single movie. Like, you can have Andrew Garfield be the older mentor Spider-Man from Miles Morales' Earth. Like, you can just say the Ultimate Universe is the Amazing Spider-Man universe. You can already see he has the energy of a midlife crisis Spider-Man. Like, look, Spider-Man wearing sweats, but in live action, and it's Andrew Garfield's version. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below. What do you think about Sony's plan to reboot their Spider-Man spin-off movies and all this live action stuff going forward? Do you think they're smarter to go forward with Miles Morales in live action in the whole Knull God of Symbiotes stuff? Whatever they wind up doing, I'm sure it'll be crazy. Of course I'll do videos for it because it'll be fun to actually watch them try. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up this week too. What If Season 3 is starting? It is going to be crazy. I'm also in the middle of making those Creature Commandos episodes, and we have the live-action David Cornswet Superman trailer, which we might get in the next couple of days. Of course, I will do all the videos for that, whatever they wind up releasing. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Click here for that new Superman trailer. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for my Kraven review. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.